And my name is Julio, and this is my video for AP Bio Big Idea 1. So, the gradual development of something is known as the process of evolution. It is when something turns from a simple life form to a more complex life form. It is a change in genetic makeup of all living organisms. Natural selection is one of the it is thought to be the main driving mechanism for evolution, so it's really important. It is a process in which the organisms that are best adapted to their environment survive, while the ones that aren't very well adapted tend to die off and become extinct. So this means that the individuals with the most helpful phenotypes are the ones that survive and pass on their favorable traits onto their offspring. This shows that natural selection affects genetic variation because only the individuals with the best traits survive. Other factors that can cause change in genetic variation are things such as mutations, genetic drift, and artificial selection. Mutations are the main source of genetic diversity, so it is the changing structure of a gene. So this means that they're not everyone in the species is exactly the same. Um, Genetic drift is also another form of genetic variation. It is something that happens over time, so from generation to generation. It is the variation in relative frequency of genotypes in a population. Lastly, artificial selection is the other source of genetic variation. Artificial selection is another way of saying selective breeding. This process is usually used by animal breeders to make sure they can uh, that they can preserve the best traits in their animals. Scientists believe that all organisms are connected by lines of descent from common ancestry. So this means that all organisms come from one universal common ancestor. Life will always continue to evolve within a changing environment no matter what. This happens because organisms need to be able to adapt the most in whichever environment that they are in so that their species does not die out and become extinct. The rates of speciation and extinction they can vary. It can be slow, gradual, or it can also occur in bursts or enter something called punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium means that nothing is really happening. It is used to show quiet periods in the in speciation and extinction. Although the rate of extinction can vary, it can be very rapid during times of ecological stress because the environment becomes very unstable and things go kind of crazy. After mass extinction, adaptive radiation occurs, which is the rapid evolution of different types of species when new habitats are opened up because of the extinction of another species. Evolution occurs in all organisms, so this can be proven because almost all organisms have had a development of chemical resistance and resistance to certain diseases. So since the organisms have evolved this way, it allows them to have of a much greater chance of surviving instead of other species that don't have those chemical resistance and resistances. So the diversity of life on the planet is explained by evolution. Most species interbreed in order to exchange genetic information within, their species, and so that they can produce viable, fertile offspring. So this means that they can produce uh, offspring that can have more offspring, so their species never dies out. Lastly, new species can arise after two populations become reproductively isolated. This happens because since the two populations remain distant, so like by a barrier or something in the way that keeps them separated, it allows the two new species to arise because they have to develop and adapt in different ways because they are separated. But they still diverge from one common ancestor. So that's it.